Welcome to Lecture 2 in Module 3. Today we're going to discuss how to analyze codes in advertising. But first, I would like to remind you that we are going to still have our open office hours at 2:15 on Wednesdays. And here is the meeting link. If you are not able to attend that meeting and you need to, you can certainly text me or email me and we can set up our own convenient time. This is not a requirement, it's just there for you in case you do have questions. Okay, let's go ahead and start with the lecture. This is an example of coded data. It looks like this whenever someone takes their field notes about the subject that they're analyzing, that they're researching, and start putting codes on it so that they can give a broader meaning. They can kind of start summing up what it is that they've actually been researching. So in this case, it's just a descriptive code, just a one word that is it just basically sums up the whole paragraph. And this is from the researcher. They're doing an observation of the setting that they are in. And so they have decided that all of the things that they're seeing is that security is a really big thing in this area. And so security is the word that they chose in order to describe that paragraph. Now, this is in vivo coding. If you were to interview someone or you were listening to someone in a commercial, let's say, that is talking about a certain product or a certain feeling that something gives them, then this is from the mouth of the person that is actually involved in the advertisement or the research. This one has several different meanings. They're talking about sense of self-worth, that someone is actually paying attention to them, and stability because they're always there, and then comfortable because, well, they say they're comfortable. Sometimes you have to use the interviewee's actual words to make meaning of a particular um, passage. So did you have the same phrases when you read that data, those paragraphs? Did you have the same words in mind whenever you were reading that, or did you have other words? It's okay, because I had other words too that I could have used that would have been more meaningful for me. Basically, the bottom line is when you are interpreting semiotic or words that people are saying, you have your own choices. You are the research instrument. So you get to decide what you want to use as far as code words. It's just not a precise science. It's interpretive. You are kind of inserting yourself into anything in this nature. So let's talk about your research lens. You need to check your lens before you start. Are you analyzing or are you decoding? If you're analyzing, your lens is your own worldview. You are interpreting how you feel, how the images, the setting, the camera angle, and the words make you feel. This should be a part of a subconscious act for everything you see and hear. Analyzing content through your own personal worldview, experiences, culture is critical thinking. Now, not taking things at face value, but diving deeper as to see in between the lines of the images and the actual text. If you are the content creator, your lens is different. You have to look through the lens of your audience. You've got to ask yourself questions like, what will this imagery invoke in the mind of the people I want to convey a message to? What does this word mean in their frame of reference? Does it have a negative connotation? I want to give you an example of a word with negative connotation. You probably have never used this word at all. It's kind of an old school word. But the word is placate. And basically, if you look it up, it is simply to soothe. But because placate was used so often in the past as a manipulative word to silence the anger that someone was feeling instead of addressing what was causing the anger, it has this negative connotation. So you'll notice that it's not used very much. English, as well as other languages, are just full of words used in a negative way that invokes emotions in different demographics. Adding to that list certain dates, colors, images, and etc. also create pitfalls when creating content. You must watch your step and be certain of your message. Be sure of your audience. Be certain of your audience. Don't just assume that they're going to see everything the same way you do. That's why it's important to learn how to analyze content. That's why focus groups from your actual audience is vital also to check your thoughts and your understandings of your audience. So whenever you are analyzing, it's better to categorize your codes. If you just have a list of 100 different code words that one time you're talking about security, the next time you're talking about feeling comfortable, not they don't necessarily go together. So it's a good thing for you and it will keep you sane if you organize your codes. So you can put them into subcategories and have a hierarchical code scheme. Here's the example that I wanted to show you. Let's say you're talking about a teacher's skills. Well, teachers have to have multiple skills. They have to have instructional skills and management skills because if they can't keep the kids in the classroom in their seats, they're not going to be able to do any of their instruction. So they both work hand in hand, but they're totally different skills. So you can list off all of the things that go under instructional skills and then list off all the things that are management skills. And as you go along and you're analyzing, you can add things to your list. This is not in stone. So, but this will help you keep things straight. So visual advertising is basically social semiotics. Social semiotics is concerned with meaning makers and meaning making. It studies the media of dissemination and the modes of communication that people use to do and develop to represent their understanding of the world and to shape their power relationships with others. All this information that I'm giving you about coding today is from one of our readings for this module. It's the one that's by Strauss. It's called Quantitative Analysis for Social Scientists. It was basically written for beginning qualitative researchers. And if you go to graduate school, you might find this really useful. So you might want to save that particular reading if you're thinking about going to grad school. It really goes more deeply than into the mode of research than we need to cover, but the structure works really well whenever you're trying to use your critical eye to determine the messages that you're receiving as well as the messages that you're sending. Let's break down what you need to be on the lookout when you're analyzing or decoding by walking through several print ads together. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the setting. They are sitting in a car. The car might be moving, but it might not be moving. He's got his hand on the wheel, so we don't know if he's driving or not. He's sure not looking down the road, but anyway, he could be driving in a street. It could be an alley. It could be next to a house. It could be so many different places. I mean, that sort of brick could be used. I would definitely say probably residential areas, but you don't ever know. It could be a building that's a commercial building or something. So the setting that we're really convinced that we're sure about is that it's in a car. So the next part that I want to go through is the actors. And I'm going to call them actors because our characters, you can call them whatever you want. There's a young man and there's a young woman, and they're sitting in the car together. And so the next thing that I want to talk about is what they're wearing. So the guy is wearing a letter jacket. You can see that there's some kind of like CHS or something like that on the front of his shirt. So that means that he's probably an athlete, pretty strong, pretty self-confident, and definitely high school. I don't think that many people wear those as an athlete in college. So definitely going to be a high school kid. We can't really tell anything about the girls' clothes. All we can see basically is that hair, that really pretty hair. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is the props. And the prop is basically the car. That really encompasses the whole setting. Without the car, this would be an entirely different advertisement. So the relationship between the two actors, well, they're really close. I mean, their faces are inches apart. They're not actually in the act of kissing, but they could very well either be just finished or just about to begin. So I'm going through this pretty quickly. If you are really going to do a good analysis, you need to take it much slower and much more thoughtful. But I just don't want to make this a 30-minute or hour long video. All right, the next thing I want to point out is the dynamics. The man is looking down in a power position. The girl is looking sideways, but from a lower position. So she's the one that's not doesn't have the power in this particular relationship. And then let's go on to the headlines. Safer sex, explore the possibilities. Okay, that kind of nails down what it is that this ad is all about. So let's draw some conclusions. Who is the ad's audience? High school students? That's my thought because the letter jacket and all that kind of stuff. So this could be college, but I would say definitely it's more towards high school students. Do you think the race of the students is important? I'm thinking no. This is an ad from the United Kingdom. You can tell by the text and the phone number because it says here you can get condoms from chemists, which is definitely an English usage. That's a pharmacist. That's to us is a pharmacist. Supermarkets, garages, and pubs. Well, we would say bars here. Usually, they might call themselves a pub, but sometimes that's not the common word here. And if you keep looking down, you see that that phone number is not a US phone number. So, do you see any other things that make you think this is from another country? I was thinking it was totally American myself until I saw all these other cues. There's one other thing that I wanted to point out because had it been this way, I would have automatically known just because of the symbolic view of it. Um, the car steering wheel is on the left side of the car. In England, their cars all have steering wheels on the right side of the car. We're the ones with it on the left. So anyway, maybe they were trying to make it for more than just one particular group of people. Maybe they took a photograph from an American um, ad agency. There's no telling. But anyway, just something that I observed when I was looking at this. So let's move on to the next ad. Now, this one I'm not going to go quite as in much depth, but I just want to talk about it some so you'll start seeing my thought patterns and maybe you can kind of understand what we're doing here. So let's break this one down. There are 4 women and 1 man. Yeah, and I know I thought originally there was only 3 women, but if you look really close at the person that's the farthest to the left, you can see that there's like a sunglasses lens that you can see. There's a shoulder, and there's too many hands over here. So we've definitely got a 4th person over here. The women, speaking of that, are all really close together. They're all looking in the same direction. They're all looking to the left, and they're turning away from the man. So the man is kind of on this outside. He's sitting behind all of them and he's sitting farther away. Does that mean that the women have a closer relationship? Are they excluding this guy or is that just how they settled? So the place. I want to show you one other thing. This setting, it's so representative. The setting is the centerpiece of the image. The people could have been picked up and taken anywhere. The people are just sitting in a very pastoral, idyllic looking meadow, really. It's a mood setter where they're sitting. It may be that that was just a random thing, but I really don't think so. I think that this photograph was very well thought out. And from my background of art history, my first thought was this particular painting, an iconic painting. You can see that it has the same sort of trees in the background. It has the same sort of grass there. People are sitting on the ground, looking all in the same direction. So they have picked up from art history, and I could have picked out like 7 or 8 different images from art history that have this same pastoral setting. These people that who the photographer decided to use as a template for his photograph. It might have been subconscious, but I really think that that was an intentional setting. So let's talk about the things. It looks like they're eating. The guy in particular is eating. There's backpacks, and it looks like they're all looking in the same direction, perhaps at something going on off screen. So let's draw some conclusions. Who is the audience for a photograph like this? Outdoorsy people? People who like to hike out in the middle of nowhere and picnic at sunset? This could be an ad for a vacation destination. I sort of, this is just my own, this is from my worldview here. It looks like to me that they are at a Shakespeare in the Park, because that's one of those things that whenever I was much younger, I don't know if they even have them anymore. I used to go to every Shakespeare in the Park I could possibly go to because I just absolutely loved it. And that just makes me think of how people were in those kinds of settings. Like I said, that was my own personal worldview. This next image is also very representational. So on this one, let's look at it from left to right first and decide and see and list all the things that we see from left to right. Okay, so in the foreground, left to right, the woman is in a white dress, and she's literally touching foreheads. Well, she maybe not totally, but their hair is touching anyway. Uh, Foreheads with the man in a black suit. They're smiling and looking each other deeply in the eye. Okay, background, top to bottom. You can see a spire, I think that's how you say it, of a very traditional type church in the background. You can also see that there's a stone wall that goes up in a peak, and there's a very ornate window in the photograph also. And then as we move down, there's flowers. The couple has flowers between them. On his lapel, he has a white rose boutonniere, and she has a nosegay of pink roses. This just screams wedding. I mean, I can practically hear the wedding march and the bells ringing. All this photograph needs is some rice flying in the air. So the conclusions of this is maybe it's an ad for a wedding, tux rental, maybe. Maybe it's a product for a couple of newlyweds. What vacation spots? Maybe that's, for the honeymoon. It could really represent a lot of things. This is very similar to the last one, but I just wanted to show this one, even though it also has sort of a wedding theme to it. I wanted to show how they used this to really put order to their photograph. The shapes. The people are holding 2 frames, which are dividing them into closer relationships. So you basically have the bride family on the left and the groom family on the right. They're all together, they're merging, but yet they're distinctly separating so that we'll know the relationships between the two groups. The colors in this particular one, of course, we can pick out the white dress that shows who the actual bride is from everybody else, from all the other females in the group. But everyone is wearing some version of blue, so to say that they are in the wedding party. So the position together, the bride and the groom are in the center. Even though they are still in their own family square, they are shoulder to shoulder. They're actually touching as they hold up the frames. So they're showing that relationship. An overall impression, I think this is a very clever way to commingle groups and keep their relationships separate, but yet they're still together. Now it is your turn. This is the participation exercise for today, for this video. I want you to look at this ad that I have right here, this Jeep ad, and I want you to answer some questions. Of course, some of them are going to be super easy, but sometimes they're not so easy. Sometimes advertisers have a tendency to hide what they're selling. So I want you to tell me what the product is, who they're advertising to, what is their audience, and what is the ad trying to sell you. And that one's kind of tricky because there's sometimes they're selling a product and sometimes they're selling a lifestyle. Anyway, just saying. So, what action is the ad asking you to do? And it needs to be a little more in depth than be one with the Jeep. I understand that that's a really clever tagline, but what does that mean? And how important is the placement of the photograph in this ad? Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to take a Word doc and just list off all of the answers to these questions. What is the product? Who is the audience? And on, so on and so on. Then I want you to load that up to Canvas and you will get your participation points. Okay, so remember, if you have any questions, feel free to text me or to email me. Next up, we're going to talk more about coding. See you next time.